Hello everyone, welcome to Fableheim and a glorious day for Age of Wonders. For the Giant Kings have been announced. The next DLC and Expansion Pass 2 will be releasing on April 1st, and I am 97% sure this is not an elaborate April Fool's joke. So in this video we'll be going over the first dev diary and all of the things that I noticed in the dev stream that followed. If you'd like to watch the dev stream for yourself or read the dev diary for yourself, I'll leave a link in the description to both of them for you to peruse at your leisure. Now, Giant Kings coming April 1st plus the dev diary. Dear Gordia, we are excited to announce the Giant Kings expansion and the free Ogre update will be available on April 1st, less than 1 month. Yes, this came a bit sooner than I was expecting, but I will not look a gift horse in the mouth. You can find below the announcement trailer for the Giant Kings. The feature highlights the Giant Kings first look stream and the first dev diary about the giant rulers. That is what we are most interested in. We will go over the highlights though. As well, here is the trailer. This is like 50 seconds long. Sneak peek of the upcoming features and reveal of the breathtaking key art. We know you'll want it for the wallpapers. How do you know me so well? So, these are the key features of the Giant Kings DLC. A new ruler type. Ascend as a mighty Giant King ruling over mortals with unmatched power. Giant Kings possess unique terraforming abilities and can use the item fort right from the start of the game. Call upon ancient weapons to fight with you and unlock powerful runes to forge unique equipment. Choose from one of 4 mighty clans and transform the world around you. Flatten peaks, raise mountains, mold lava, and freeze the land. The new Crystal Dwelling, a towering structure that houses souls of the ancient giants encased in crystalline matrices. Earn the favor of the Council Prolocutor. Improve your relations and access a unique shop offering exclusive skills, magical equipment, and artifacts. Moreover, formidable new creatures are now roaming the lands. Crystal Forge Letharine units and colossal primordial beasts ready to challenge players to combat in Ancient Wonders. Landmark regions. New massive regions will appear in your realm that you can annex to your empire for economic benefits. Magnificent waterfalls, the remains of ancient dragons, majestic underground monuments, and more are waiting for you to explore. Shop structures. Merchants now roam the land, offering powerful services and rare goods. Visit one of these shop types to purchase hero equipment and skills, mounts, or strategic vision over world map areas. Feeling bold? Attack these traders to seize their wares. But beware, future dealings may be closed to you. 2 new tomes. The Tome of the Dungeon Depths to build a grand underground empire and protect it at all costs. Transform your provinces into a new dungeon theme with economic bonuses and 4 special province improvements. Craft eternal clay soldiers and deadly traps to defend your territories. The Tome of Geomancy lets you become attuned to the ley line energies beneath you and channel them to supercharge your army's damages and resistance. Recruit Geomancer units to harness the powers of the earth and encase your forces in razor-sharp crystalline armor. And yes, the Tome of Geomancy does have the very first Materium Major Transformation. I'm so glad to see it. And so much more, including 3 new realm traits that include a story-driven region with unique endgame events, 2 new Ancient Wonders, 4 new music soundtracks, a new interface skin, and countless smaller updates. The Giant Kings will launch April 1st, 2025 for a suggested retail price of $24.99 USD. And it is of course included inside of the Expansion Pass 2 if you pick that up. Alongside Giant Kings, all Ancient Wonders 4 players will receive a free content update on April 1st. The Ogre update will include new features such as a feudal culture rework, the siege rework, lava provinces, and lots of visual updates. Full details on these free additions will be shared in the game's patch notes shortly before launch. They didn't mention the siege rework. That is probably the most exciting part. Probably the most exciting part here. Although feudal cultures, the rework for this is It is magnifique. But don't worry, we'll get into that in the second part of the video. So, the Giant King's Dev Diary. Hi everyone, I am Luis Ferreira. Sorry, to my best. A senior designer at Triumph Studios, and I am here to tell you about the titular Giant Kings, a new leader type lumbering your way on April 1st as part of the new expansion for the Expansion Pass 2 of Age of Wonders 4. The ancient Giant Kings trace their regal line back to the Kingdom of Meridia from the Age of Giants. Though the current clans are few in number and hold only a fraction of the power of the ancient kingdom, they are still primordial beings, masters of the Forge, and shapers of worlds. Now, there are 4 types of Giant Kings added in this DLC. There's an asterisk after that, but we'll get to that. So we have the Storm Giant King. By the way, some of these screenshots will kind of overlap with the Dev Diary, but, it'll be fine. So for the Storm Giant King, a thunderous giant who evens out realms by flattening peaks. Capital City starts with the Wizard Tower item forge that is for all giants, has the Summon Storm Runesteel spell. All of the giants have their own Runesteel, and it goes with the second part of this, where provinces with water, rivers, or water provide +1 food and +1 mana, and the Giant Kings are Giant King governors. So what does all that mean? The Runesteel is unique to all the giants, and they can plop it into a province, and it will transform nearby provinces, terraform them, into their preferred type. So for the Storm Giant who likes water, it'll start transforming the terrain into river terrain to give them bonus food and mana. And now all Gaudir types have their own governor type. They used to just be Gaudir governor, all of them were the same. Immortal Champion had the same governor benefits as an Eldritch Sovereign, and that didn't really make sense. So now it's been changed. For the Rock Giant King, everything is the same, but provinces with mountains or stalagmites provide +3 production. There has also been a huge overhaul to the underground. Round of applause, fantastic. You'll love to see it. We'll see a little bit more of it. They didn't go too deep into the underground in the first dev stream because, well, they couldn't. But yeah, some production from mountains or stalagmites. For the Giant, the Fire Giant King, he can build farms on ashlands, and provinces with lava or lava chasms provide +2 production. Cities ignore the extra city stability penalty from lava and lava chasms, and that is quite a city stability. I believe it is -15. That's more than Gloom. And for the Frost Giant King, they can build farms on snow, and provinces with snow or ice provide +2 mana. The insane synergy with the Shadow Tomes for Frost Giant King is something I kind of want to explore someday. We'll see. Although the polls will determine my future, I'm sure. There are 4 clans to pick from: Storm, Rock, Fire, and Frost. In their role as Earth Shapers, each clan has a Runesteel that they can summon on their provinces. This magical construction changes the surrounding terrain to a preferred environment, granting the giant cities economic bonuses. As Forge Masters, all Giant Kings start the game with the Item Forge unlocked, and as they gain hero skills in one of their unique trees, their prowess with the Forge becomes unparalleled. The Giant Kings can create a Tier 5 item, and they are the only ones. They're special. But before you start the game, you need to pick a weapon. The Giant Kings have the following weapons available to them. The Magical Obelisk. I believe this is the only weapon for Ritualists and Mages. This weapon is a bulky obelisk charged with runic magic that can be deployed at a distance. Using its obelisk crash base ability, the giant teleports the obelisk above their enemies and makes it crash down on the target and all adjacent enemies, dealing physical and magical damage. You must build additional pylons. The Giant Axe, the weapon of choice for the melee giant wanting to deal heavy damage. This Giant Axe cleaves into huge downstrike, dealing damage to the target and the unit behind them. This is, I believe, a shock weapon. And the Warhammer. More flexible than the Giant Axe, this weapon strikes in a repeating motion, dealing damage in a 1-hex cone. In front of the giant, it is the perfect weapon for those wanting to sweep a group of enemies away. This is pretty good. They use this in the dev stream. It's very, very strong. So here are the hero skills of the Giant Kings. The left section of this all deals with the item forge. The middle section is an animated weapon that you can summon, and the right section has to do with your elemental ranged ability. As you do battle, your Giant King earns experience. They will learn new skills unique to them. Their skills are split into 3 trees, as seen on the image above, from left to right. They are the item forge tree. Maybe I should just let them talk. Skills that improve your forging abilities. This tree starts by giving giants more material on disenchanting items so they have more to work with. Yes. Then come the rune infusions, which are special item infusions unique to the Giant Kings. Each clan has their own infusions. For example, the Fire Giant King can grant a weapon more fire damage, and a burning chance, making an armor that grants immunity to burning, or enchant a wand with the ability to summon a lava runestone on the battlefield that burns all those around it. Yeah, Thomas was mentioning in the dev stream how he likes to rush this, so he can just, print out weapons that are relatively effective in the early game. The capstone skill Forge Master allows the creation of items with up to 6 infusion points, compared to the normal 5, marking the giants as the ultimate item crafters, creating arms and armaments for themselves and their heroes that cannot be rivaled, except by another giants. The animated weapon tree. Oh, this is cool. So this, I'm assuming, is Earth. This is Storm, this is Fire, this is Frost. Okay. This tree of skill allows the giant to summon an enchanted living weapon in combat. The weapon conjuration starts as a tier 1 greatsword, dealing single target damage, of a type corresponding to the giant's clan. As you invest in this tree, you can upgrade the conjured weapon into a different, stronger animated weapon, going from the tier 1 greatsword into a tier 2 weapon. There are 4 in total, with each clan having access to 2 of them. Oh, I see, okay. I was like, wait a minute. This looks like more than 4, but the spear is shared. The shield is shared. Warhammer, okay, got it. Stronger, animated weapon. There are 4 in total, with each one having access to 2 of them. A hammer that hits in a charged area of effect, a ranged bow with phasing capabilities, a glaive that pierces enemies, or a shield that stuns those it hits. Well, that sounds fun. For example, the Fire Giant can evolve their greatsword into the hammer or a bow for ranged damage, while the Storm Giant can upgrade their summon to the shield or the glaive. And here is the Hurl tree. Very simple. These are called magic we're hurling. So there's Hurl Flame, Hurl Lightning, Hurl Boulder, Hurl Ice Boulder. These are 1 AP actions with 6 range that always hits. That's important to note. The Fire one does Burning, the Hurl Lightning does Electrified, and the Hurl Boulder and Hurl Ice Boulder do Slow. And you know what that means? I don't think that joke's ever going to get old. Do you want your Rock Giant to throw a boulder and your Storm Giant to hurl a ball of elemental lightning? Then this tree is your pick. Each giant clan has their own version of this tree, and as you spend points, you can fine-tune this ranged ability to your liking. You can focus on single targets by making this ability more damaging and debilitating, or expand its area of effect by making your Fire Giant hurl flame into a fireball. Well, that sounds fun. Signature skills. Ah, yes. The Giant King signature skills are affinity-themed runes that grant them bonus passives. There we go. I want to say pacifists for some reason. Bonus passives. At level 4 and 12, the Giant can pick minor runes like the Critical Rune, Chaos, which raises critical hit chances, or the Reflection Rune, Astral, which reflects a portion of the damage taken back to attackers. Which rune are we hovering here? I don't know. It might be this second one. Level 8. At level 8, but we could check. So very fast movement on a giant. Gain a stack of strength and fortune for 3 turns when it uses an attack ability. That sounds incredible. At level 8, the giant gets to pick a stronger rune, like the Fury rune in the above image that changes the giant's movement speed and grants buffs as it attacks. Just keep reading, Vabe. Other runes at this level include the Life rune, Nature, which grants the giant Undying, reviving it after a turn in combat, or the Brawn rune, Materium, which grants the Mighty Stomp ability that in a 2-hex cone can apply Immobilize, Stun, and Bleeding. Yes, I quite like that one. At level 16, the Giant has access to Grand Runes, which emulate the rune unlock at level 8, giving a weaker version of that rune to the Giant King's army. So taking the examples from above, the Grand Life rune gives all units in the Giant King's army natural regeneration, and the Grand Brawn rune gives all units a 15% damage increase along with a high chance to inflict bleed. Yes, I know what I like. As an additional note, unlike affinity signature skills from Mortal Champions and Wizard Kings, these can be unlocked without having an affinity pre-requirement. All affinity runes are available to your Giant, so you can build them however you want. I believe this is just like the Dragon Lords. Good. And that's all I have for you on the Giant Kings for now. And if there are some things, you can discover them once you experience this new expansion on the 1st of April. The next Dev Diary will be by Bus, and he will go over the art of this expansion as well as the new regions and environments, so look out for it next week. The art, huh? Usually Tomes is next, but that's okay. That's okay. There is a lot of art to talk about, not just because of, the general art additions, but there are some very special things added that we'll talk about, I think, in the second part of this video. It's time for the handy-dandy notebook and my very long list of screenshots. There are a lot of screenshots, so welcome to part 2. We are joined by Thomas, the Liege Lord of Design. I believe he worked primarily on the feudal culture, he worked in a few other things. And then Tom Bird, the lead game developer. We are here on the realm setup, because there have been a number of changes. One is the Crystalline Dwelling, which is a realm trait that adds a crystalline dwelling onto the map. Engage in its eternal search for knowledge. This is the new dwelling type. I don't remember if they said this could spawn naturally. It may not be able to, but we will meet them later. Next up, the Legends of Meridia. This is a new realm trait. The realm was once part of the fabled giant kingdom called Meridia. There are fated regions present on the map, which offers quest chains exploring the present and past of Meridia. You can gain powerful unique artifacts when completing the fated regions, which grant unique bonuses and can be collected to start impactful follow-up happenings. Fated regions are affected by Wards of Fate, and only some of the fated regions available will be present, leaving more to be explored on another realm. They were uncertain if a fated region could appear naturally, and this just guaranteed it. But it probably is that way, just like happenings. The artifacts are unique items bound to the empire of the player, provide unique bonuses to the empire controlling them. They are often parts of a collection. Completing the collection will trigger an impactful collection happening. Artifacts may be traded between players. When defeating a player, all artifacts of that player are claimed by the defeating player. Some multiplayer shenanigans. I wonder if this includes AI too. More reason to be violent. The Wards of Fate, the region is protected by a spell, according to myth woven by Fate itself, which renders this sector uninhabitable, and blocks world map spells. I promise I can talk. Only when the fateful conflict overseen by this spell has been resolved will the ward be dispersed. So you can't aggressively expand to it to have replenishment within its conflict. Wise. This is a new setup, a new page in the advanced setup, the realm content. This allows you to basically change what is formulated in the world. When the world is being generated, you can make it so it doesn't generate a certain race, a certain ruler type, a certain culture. You can use this to very much control the story of the realm. The example that Tom used was you can either make like a Tolkien world, which he said was very boring. He said that, not me. Or you can go all furries. The primal furry, you know? So this is very cool for story stuff. I still think I want to see all the random things because I control, of course, the Gaudir. But this could be very useful. We'll see. Good fun. They've added 4 new realm traits. that you can add, well, not new realm traits, but they've added 4 additional realm trait slots. So now there's even more shenanigans you can do. And of course, that's because they keep adding stuff. So, ooh, there's an untouched realm here. I didn't even see this. I wonder what that is. Maybe you just have to diggy a lot. And here we get to the big part of the free update, the feudal culture rework. It has been long overdue. The feudal culture, they said, was the first culture that they designed. So it makes sense that it aged rather questionably. But those days will be long past, beginning on April 1st. The feudal culture now has 2 subcultures. It is 1 order affinity, and the monarchy is 1 materium affinity. The monarchy was designed to be the most basic of the basic, the player introduction culture. Your people are loyal to the absolute rule of their monarch, gaining power from the presence of their ruler. Units gain the For the Monarch trait, and certain units can promote into a higher tier, units on attaining legendary rank. More on that later. So For the Monarch, while in combat in own domain or alongside their ruler, the units with For the Monarch will gain +1 defense and +1 resistance, plus 10% damage, and plus 10 morale. It is very beneficial to have an army, units with your lord. And I believe they said, yes, while in combat alongside. So you can have your dreaded 3 stack of units, and when all 3 stacks are drawn into combat, all of them will gain the bonus of For the Monarch, not just the 5 that are in the Monarch's stack. I believe this affects heroes too, right? I think so. There's another trait for the Monarch specifically. I believe I do highlight it later, but fun little tidbit. It makes unit upkeep 0. So, yeah, that's fun. Now, the upgrade stuff, we're going to see this later, but essentially, both the Monarchy and the Aristocracy can upgrade units, and the Monarchy has a unique... They both have different tier 3 units. The Monarchy's is this longbow lady over here, and she is basically a tier 3 better version of the Archer. The second subculture is the Aristocracy, which is a 1 nature affinity subculture. Your cities form powerful houses able to wield efficient armies that are led, or when led, by their liege lords. This is a little more complicated and does require more, not micro, but macro control of the game. And there's a lot of stipulations to this. So, each city has a feudal house led by its governor, who becomes the house's liege lord. Units produced in feudal cities become part of that city's feudal house, gaining experience as their liege lord gains renown. I believe that starts at renown level 2. Certain units can promote into higher tier units when attaining the legendary rank. So I showed in the next picture, right? Yes. They have this left guy here, who I believe is the liege guard liege. He is a tier 3 shield boy that evolves from the defender. And they have I believe this picture was they went back and did the horses, the horse trait, horse masters, mount masters, that one. So they're just showing off all of the units that have optional cavalry, which is pretty much every unit except the archer has optional cavalry in the feudal culture. So if you want to do a proper Rohirrim culture, this is for you. Wait, really? Okay. Should have had some more pictures here, Fabe. But I do have notes. So, there are some stipulations to this. The way this works with the whole feudal house joining thing, any unit that is produced in a city becomes a member of that house. We will see this later on more specifically, but if a unit is summoned, it will join the house of the lord, the hero it's summoned closest to, whether it's on them or just near them, or the city the city tile it's summoned on. For Rally of the Lieges, there's a new mechanic where a unit from the Rally of Lieges can be sent to whichever city you want, not just the Throne City, and whichever city it is sent to will join that house. Units Oh, also, if a unit is picked up off the floor like the little cages, it will join the house of the nearest hero. Units cannot change houses. When a governor is switched or dies, that city will lose city stability for a little bit, but the hero can then be reassigned as that city's governor or a new governor, and it will then take up the mantle of that house. And they just said the hero is not the house. The hero just represents the house. The house is the city, basically. So, here's some looks at the Storm Giants, or, the Giant Kings. I believe we went through all of them briefly. We did see this earlier. And here are some looks at the the other Godir and their governors. I don't believe they hovered the dragon one. The Wizard Governor is very wizardry. Each SPI now grants +5 mana at level 1. At level 2, each conduit or research post grants 5 city stability. At level 3, each population grants +1 knowledge. And at renown level 4, the city produces 10% more mana income. In addition, each renowned level grants +5 combat costing points and +5 world map costing points. So it's at least +20 more on top of the Wizard King's unique hero skills. A call back to the past. For the champion, renowned level 1, each farm grants +5 food. Renowned level 2, acquiring new population requires 10% less food. That's crazy. Renowned level 3, each population grants +1 gold, +1 mana, +1 knowledge. And at renowned level 4, units cost 20% less gold and draft to recruit. This is actually very similar to the Godir Governor we have right now. I believe renowned level 4 is the only difference here. And here is some of the customization for the Giant King. Doesn't he look great? Yeah, fantastic. We have a Rockhead. We have Radagast the Brown as a giant. They ended up going with this Cyclops type character. Of course, there's so much to draw from for Greek mythos for that. I like this one because it has a tiny little crown. A tiny little crown. Oh, there's Cho'Gall. Ooh, that's a great character idea. Okay. We have some of the capes. They look quite majestic on him. They are very, very large. I wonder if this bottom one is like a full shadow, if it's just mist falling off it. They didn't show all of them, but we can look at this little preview thing as quite the aid. We have some body types, or excuse me, outfits. That's quite the fungal. More Radagast going on here. Radagast the Brown. This is as they were putting their character together. He doesn't look exactly like this, but he's getting there. Here is the Giantess. I almost called her a goddess. The Giantess, who I actually do have one character idea for this. But we'll see. I'll cook. Here's some of the bone armor. It's very cool. Did he? Yeah, so there's these are basically bone wyvern rings. Bone wyvern wings. They look so cool. She's just full-blown necromancer and evil. Now, something I did write in my notes that I don't have a picture for, of course, just talking about the future. There are more giant types coming. Coming in the next DLC. The Archon Prophecies, the Archons did involve some of the giants. So if the 4 elemental types we're offered now are not your shtick, don't worry. There will be more. I believe this is them closing in on their final character design. You can see they have down here, I believe both of these, maybe this one as well, tattoo designs are for the Storm Giant. I would assume the other giants have like unique skin decorations for their elemental type, but I think that's because it looked like he was imbued with lightning. And it does look very cool. There are some new emblems for the Giant Kings. Pretty much most of the Materium ones down here are new, but anything that says GK next to it is new as well, like this little butterfly. Some stone faces up there. There are also 2 new society traits in the Pantheon, but they did not show those and they were not unlocked on this account. We'll probably see them before the release, and I have points saved up to try and get them for my playthrough. So here are the weapons. There is the Giant Axe, the Warhammer, and there's a Bone Giant Axe and a Bone Warhammer. I believe they don't change at all, they just look cooler. Because they're made of bone, of course. The Giant Axe is a heavy charge strike. I was right, it's a shock weapon. As you can see, it does shock weapon things. That's an image. The Warhammer has the 1 hex cone. Fantastic. Here is the obelisk. It's quite amusing for a mage weapon. And there is the attack. 10 physical, 10 lightning. Deal damage to target units. Adjacent enemy units to the target sustain 75% damage. So it's similar. It's what? Oh, it's 4 tiles. I was going to say it's similar to the Eldritch Sovereign, but it's not really at all. And if something does get in melee to it, it has a kick, because this cannot be used in zone of control. Looking majestic. Majestic. So for the army, they actually have added quite a few customization options. One is the ability to change the body shape. There was a mod for this, and the developers were in contact with the mod maker, who basically just asked them to put it in the game. So they have humans, but they can kind of change the shape of the humans to be... I believe this one is human. This one is goblin. Dwarf. This is dwarf. Ugh, sorry, that's a grudgeon. This is halfling, this is orc, and this is elf, I believe. They do end up going with orc-shaped humans, which is very funny. There's also a voice override, which I think I do get a picture of. Look at them. They're beautiful. Ah, yes, there's horse skins. So the horses can change colors, and they go through quite a few of them before deciding on something else. It got very bright all of a sudden because there is a brightness button up here. So instead of everything looking so dark when you're making your character, you can turn on the light. Let there be light! To see how they will look in the open world as the sun shines down upon them. And here's the voice override. You can choose the voice for any of your characters. You can have goblins doing gremlin noises, or cats purring and meowing as humans, which is hilarious. But I believe they just chose the default. Call Militia is a feudal skill. It says feudal aristocracy, but I think both get it. And this summons 2 militia. The peasant units are out. The spear boys, they are no longer called peasants. They're now called militia, and they do look like they were given proper, not armor, but like clothes. They're not just falling apart at the seams. And part of the reason why this is such an important spell is because you can use this to summon 2 units to a new city. So you can immediately get 2 units to join a new house and gain the benefits of their liege lord. Also, militia have an upkeep of 1 gold. Just 1. Just 1. Of course, if you as you add enchantments and whatnot, it gets more expensive, but by default, it is simply 1. You can see down here these little banners. These represent the house that these are members of. Of course, as the starting army, they are members of the Godyr's house. Here is the Liege Lord trait. The hero is the Liege Lord of their house, granting them and house units in their army minus 10% unit upkeep. The free thing is just for monarchs. We are playing, the devs are playing as the aristocracy. Heal plus 5 hit points per world map per turn. In battle, they and all units of their house gain plus 10 hit points, plus 5 morale, and this bonus increases as the hero gains renown. I don't believe they were able to get to renown level 2, so I'm not sure how this increase works, but that's kind of correct. They have House Advinde. There's the picture here, and this is the Defender. The Defender has been demoted to Tier 1. Nothing has really changed. But they now have Aspirant Liege Guard. I do think I go into this a little bit more, but this is basically evolution. The reason that they had to make it Aspirant instead of Evolution is there are lots of evolution synergies to just push a unit into the next stage of evolving, which was pretty strong. Pretty strong. Yes, House of Vinda. Which you can change if you'd like. You can't change the base color because that, of course, is tied to your culture. But you can change the symbol color. You can even change the symbol, the house name, and, of course, the city name. Could always be changed. Here's the glorious Defender on his nice little Shetland pony. And there's the Aspirant Liege Guard. With this unit gains legendary rank, it instead promotes to a Liege Guard. Requires a feudal Tier 3 town hall to be built in the Empire. So for the aspirants, you do actually have to have the right tier of town hall. I don't think evolves work that way at all. So Nice little limiting factor, more than anything. Here is the Archer. The Archer now also inflicts, or attempts to inflict, Sunder Defense on their enemies. There's only a 30% chance, it's nothing great. But every little bit helps, especially at the beginning. Because they are the aristocracy culture, this does not evolve into the longbow. For the Liege, here's just a little tooltip. Liege Lord of this unit's house is on the battlefield, granting it plus 10 hit points. Plus 5. Morale. The Bannerman has been reworked. He is still tier 2, so fret not. But he is now very much focused on being near his allies. So all adjacent friendly units gain plus 1 defense and plus 1 resistance, just by being there. He doesn't have to be in defense mode. But his defense mode was buffed. And to further synergize with that, his heal has been reworked into Soothing Standard. This is now a single target touch spell, so one range only. Target friendly unit grants plus 25 temporary hit points and plus 10 morale, and the Bannerman will enter into defense mode, giving defense mode warding, which of course extends the zone of control. But plus 2 defense, plus 2 resistance and melee flanking, and all adjacent friendly units gain plus 3 resistance and plus 3 status resistance. So when you're in the dread blob of doom, even if the enemy Gaudier throws a fireball or a lightning zap on you, you have a high chance to resist the damage it deals. Also worth noting now, this is a touch character. I mean, they always kind of were with their little 1 hex around them heal, but a lot of the early game support enchantments, they require touching. It just kind of plays right into it. And this is an optional cavalry unit that's mounted because they have the Mount Masters. Here's the Hurl Lightning in the game. It zaps. Nice. The Feudal Culture, I believe each of them have their own unique building. For the Aristocracy, they have the House Hunting Grounds. This replaces the farm. And the whole idea with this is that you build this in a new city because you want the new city to be pumping out units as soon as possible to hang out with their Liege Lord. For the Monarch, I believe I don't know which building it is, but I believe it gives city stability. So, that's fun. Here's a little militia, look at him. He's not quite as ragtag anymore. 1 gold. 1 gold. The Giant Kings can equip all weapons, or all items, except mounts. They're too big. And they do not have any offhands. So all of their weapons are technically two-handed weapons. Here is the skill tree. Of course, the signature skills and the warrior stuff is all about what to be expected. The fancy new things are over here on the left. So in the middle, which is where we're starting for some reason, we have the Contra Animated Lightning Blade, a 3-turn summon. The Hurl Lightning is the basic thing over here that you start with. Back to the middle, okay. Impactful Animated Weapon. When conjuring the animated weapon, deal 10 lightning damage to adjacent enemies. Whatever. And then you get to choose between which weapon type replaces your tier 1 sword. For the Storm Giants, you choose between the Animated Sword Glaive or the Shield, the Animated Storm Shield. Again, these are tier 2 weapons units that function as they are, so that's a polearm and this is a shield. The Animated Sword Glaive has 75 hit points. A polearm unit has the 10 lightning, 5 physical damage repeating attack, and then it has Storm Strike, which is, who knows. The Animated Storm Shield has a melee single strike. Okay, I was about to say, that's not a 15-15 repeating attack, is it? No. And I believe it has a chance to stun as well, as we saw in the Dev Diary. From there, both paths can lead to... I guess you can get both these upgrades now, they're not locked. So Reinforced Conjure Weapon, the Conjure Weapon gains plus 20 hit points, plus 2 status resistance, and +1/+1 defense and resistance. And you can also sharpen it, giving it plus 20% damage and causing it to inflict Electrify. This is because it's a Storm Giant's weapon. I'm assuming the other ones do other things. Burning, bleeding, maybe even Frozen for Frost Giant? Maybe. Over back towards Hurl Lightning, you have a choice between 2 upgrades. There is a lock between them. One is Chain Lightning. where Hurl Lightning now deals damage to 2 other targets within 2 hexes, and its cooldown is increased by 1. Or Sundering Lightning, where Hurl Lightning gains plus 10 lightning damage and inflicts 2 Sunder Defense, 2 Sunder Resistance for 3 turns. No, it does say inflict, not chance to inflict, so that's kind of spicy. Now from there, all 3 of these are locked, so they're all mutually exclusive. From the left, we have Stunning Lightning, where Hurl Lightning gains a 120% base chance of inflicting stunned, which is very cool. Now, this can only be obtained down the leftmost path, meaning you cannot add this to the AoE. I thought about that. Then I have an image of nothing. Cool. On the far right is Mass Chain Lightning, which can only be attained from the right, where now deals damage to 4 other targets within 3 hexes and has its cooldown increased by 1. The developers did go for this path line here, and I believe it may just reduce their cooldown if it's not like a once per battle thing. That was what I was thinking about, doing like a Mass Chain Lightning or Mass Fire thing, or I suppose a big ass boulder, and then resetting the cooldown. I thought that'd be really funny with Weaver, right? On the left side, we have, of course, the Item Forge interactions. The first one is Disenchanting grant plus 35% Binding Essence and Fragments, a new resource that we will talk about. That can be upgraded to either path. None of this is locked, so you can get all of it if you want to. The Rune of Power Storm grants plus 10% damage on attacks, and gain access to the Rune of Power Storm Infusion in the Item Forge applies to weapons. This is just a plus 10% damage to the Giant King, I believe. And then we get a special fancy rune for the Item Forge. Again, Tom mentioned using this to just pump out like tier 1, tier 2 weapons very early on for his army. Not a bad idea. The Rune of Protection Storm, gain plus 1 defense, plus 1 resistance. Again, I think for the Giant King. Gain access to the Rune of Protection Storm Infusion in the Item Forge, applies to armor. Don't know what that is. Immunity to being electrified. Oh, hey, guess what? It's plus 1 resistance and plus 3 lightning resistance and immunity to electrified. Even better than I thought it was. Fighting a Mystic Culture? I laugh at them. From there, both paths can go this way, but the Rune of Command Storm, gain plus 3 status resistance, again, for the Giant King, and gain access to the Rune of Command Storm Infusion in the Item Forge, applies to trinkets, which base attacks have a plus 2 lightning damage. Ooh, that could be insane. And a base 60% chance of inflicting electrified. What? Oh, this is for the weapon infusion, not for the trinket. I thought we had like a trinket thing going on. Sorry, I had to grab some of this as they were moving the thing around really fast. But the one in the middle, back to the Hurl Lightning, the swirly thing in the middle, is Hurl Lightning gains plus 10 damage. So they chose not to go with that because they wanted the full AoE shenanigans, and honestly, I can't blame them. Oh shit, that's all I got of this. I could have sworn I got to see all of this, because the bottom part here is plus 1 infusion, but maybe I did not. Here is the new Crystalline Dwelling. This is a Swedish pronunciation, so I'm not even going to bother. Here is the Storm Rune Steel. They do summon it on their capital. This is them meeting the Crystalline Dwelling. They found the dwelling by accident from a pickup. So what these are, these little crystals here, are Giant King souls that were encased in crystal to live on for all of eternity because they were being destroyed by the Archons, I think. There was some lore discussion. There's that. I'm pretty sure functionally this is very similar to the dwelling for the Gloom people, the Umbral Demons, but the Giant King dwelling, the Crystalline Dwelling, excuse me, is true neutral. So it does not care if you're evil, it doesn't care if you're good, it just is. So of course we can expect it. And here is the inspection. And they are the Sentinels. You can purchase stuff from them, where it's based on the level. So they have Truce, the Crystal Runner, which we will see later. It's hilarious. The Elithering Core is a tier 1 support unit. Then it looks like we have some items here. And then another unit, the Litharine Needler, a scroll. They didn't really go over any of these. They're just here. I'm sure they'll talk about it in depth in a later dev diary. They were offered a quest to go find some stuff. They want... The whole purpose of the crystalline dwelling, unlike the Umbral Demons who are about sacrifice and war and chaos and death, these guys want you to go out into the world and view things. Find out knowledge for them because they are immobile. So they had a quest to go recover some relic or whatever. And you can ask them for a quest at any time. So that you can ask for a quest, you can ask for a challenging quest. You can also pay them with knowledge or mana to raise your allegiance. They ask, I think, for a basic quest. Here is the Litharine Core, the Tier 1 support unit. They didn't go over any of its abilities, but here it is. It is a floating crystal. And speaking of crystals, this is the new major transformation. I saw Supergrowth and got confused, like, wait a minute. Supergrowth is a minor transformation. So the Geomantic Crystallization. This gives the elemental unit type. Now, as far as Tom was aware, the Tier 5 Tome of the Creator is unchanged, which means your cultural units that have been geomantically crystallized get Undying. That seems a little strong to me, but I'll be the first to try it out. Let me at it, coach. They gain resistance to a specific damage type based on the terrain that the unit is on, and +2 damage on attacks based on terrain the unit is on. So the Tome of Geomancy in general, which we will briefly, very briefly, touch on near the end, is all about the terrain you're currently on. So for example, if you're on an ice or snowy terrain, you will gain bonus frost resistance and bonus frost damage. And I think Ashlands gives fire, because you're not going to stand in lava. I don't think. Speaking of, here's some of the underground stuff. They, like, as I mentioned earlier, they touched very, 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 very briefly on the underground. They didn't really get to explore it too much. And one of the main things I want to drive home, because I was very happy to hear this, is the underground generation has been reworked. And there are now 2 types of generation for the underground. There is the settling generation, where the whole idea is that the underground will spawn with bigger open areas to allow you to settle and create large cities. The other one is an exploration generation, where I think it's more like narrow and labyrinthine, and you can dig through a bunch of stuff. And the whole point is just to explore it and, you know, loot and ravage its resources. By default, I believe it is set up for settling, but there is a new realm trait to allow for the exploration. That might be what the untreaded path was at the start. Could be. Could indeed be. Now, I hope these little lava lakes here, I really hope these are replacing the giant lava pools that blocked you in from expanding. Or at the very least, the majority of them. Fingers crossed. But here you can see the lava terrain. Blistering hot lava is present in this region, giving -15 morale. Now, this is, of course, you can overcome this with all sorts of means and measures, but that's still quite a hefty penalty. They never hovered over what stalagmites mean. These supposed to be the new mountains. This used to be called mountainous terrain, and it was tilting. Now it's called stalagmites. The Call to Glory is a feudal, again, it says feudal aristocracy. It could be both, it could just be one. For 3 turns, all friendly units gain +5 morale at the start of your turn. It says +10, but that is a bug. It is indeed +5. They use it later on, and it shows that in the actual combat tooltip. Here is the Storm Runesteel. Every turn, this structure alters one province's terrain to include rivers. This terrain alteration extends up to a radius of 2 provinces, and if removed, the terrain change is reverted. So plop this where you want, change the terrain to your beneficial terrain. Here is the Giant King Governor. I believe this is for all Giant Kings. So each quarry grants +5 production. City structures cost 20% less gold at level 2. Level 3, each quarry grants +1 binding fragments. Again, new resource, we'll get to it. And at tier 4, city structures grant +2 gold, in addition to the normal effects. Now, I'm not going to critique the gameplay of the developers. But, just because this gives more production, I don't think you should build only quarries. Just throwing that one out there. I don't know, it's just a thought I had. As a YouTuber, I get critiqued all the time, so I'm sharing the love, you know? So here are the binding fragments. These were implemented to prevent people from just not making any tier 1 or tier 2 items. You use the binding fragments to create tier 3 plus items in the item forge. So tier 3, tier 4, and as a giant king, you can make tier 5. You still need the binding essence. It's just it takes a bunch of binding essence and some binding fragments. The way you get binding fragments, the Giant King, of course, has a way to do so. And I believe... well, they chose Reclaimers as their society trait. I think that now gives fragments as well. But the way to do this is by disenchanting or breaking down tier 3 or tier 4 items that you obtain. So the whole idea is you have to actually naturally find tier 3, tier 4 items before you can start making your own custom tier 3, tier 4 items. That's the idea. We'll see how it all pans out. And there's also a good screen to kind of see some of the new HUD. They add one of these every DLC. And this one is very rock and stone. So, you know, my Dowie friends appreciate it, I'm sure. They showed off what it takes to make a tier 3 weapon now. It is 50 binding essence. Excuse me. 260 binding essence and 50 binding fragments. So it's less fragments required, but you do still need some. Ah, there it is. Forge Master. Increase maximum fusion points in the item forge by 1, so you can get up to a tier 5 item. Which sounds pretty crazy to me. They had one of the Crystalline Forest. This is a very basic bronze wonder. We've cleared it so many times. But I noticed at the bottom, remember the first day you became a Giant King among your people. It looks like it gives city stability. They chose the mana one because red is bad. I can't blame them. Here are the signature skills. They went with the Reflecting Rune, which reflects 20% of the damage sustained by melee attacks. I believe all of the unlocks here, that a signature skill unlocks, all the things they make available, is what we expect from regular signature skill. They don't have unique ones like the Eldritch Sovereign. And yes, somebody asked. I'm glad they did. I was asleep at this time. Otherwise, I would have. The final tier, the Materium Grand Rune, it may unlock Ancient of Earth, but it does not make the giant bigger. My heart. It hurts, you know? They said apparently it broke some things, but I would have liked to see it anyway. So I did find all the runes. That's right, that's right. So the Reflecting Rune, the Astral one, reflect 20% of damage back, sustained by melee attacks specifically. The Critical Rune grants plus 15% critical hit chance to the Giant King. The Order Guard Rune gives +1 defense and +1 resistance. The Damage Materium Rune grants plus 15% damage on attacks. I'm assuming this would affect the Hurl shenanigans. The Dispelling Rune of Shadow, at the start of a turn, dispels 1 negative status effect. Oh, that's kind of good. And the Vitality Rune of Nature. Unit gains plus 10 hit points. You can make a very tanky giant. They did rework Frenzy ever so slightly, and by rework, they added the effects are increased for single shot attacks. So if you have a shock weapon, crossbow, a staff or whatever, you will now gain 2 strengthen whenever you attack somebody instead of just 1. Good change. They've slowly been adding this to pretty much everything in the game. I think they're just picking up what they've missed. In the hero editor, they showed off that the feudal culture now has actual proper plate armor, which is nice. I like that. This is the hero they were changing. There he is. Isn't he beautiful? Instead of that weird thing we had before. We now have proper plate. Very nice. This was their second hero for their second town, and the moment he became the governor, House Myspell was founded. Everything about this can be modified except the background color, which is based on your faction. And here is the Crystal Runner, also known as Butt Stallion. Borderlands. This is a tier 1 crystal horse. Yep, that's... Look how happy Tom was. And that's it. It's a crystal horse. I don't think it has any benefit. It's just crystal. This one, they didn't mention it, but I noticed that Call Militia... Oh, it even says it in the tooltip, doesn't it? I thought I was so clever. Summon 2 militia in the target-owned city. Most summoning skills allow you to summon next to a hero. Call Militia can only be used on a city tile. Good to know, I guess. Here is the tier 2 city. I don't think there's anything special here, but I took a screenshot anyway. And here is the one of the primordial beasts. Unfortunately, there is not a Godzilla. But there's a King Kong and a Mothra, apparently, of some kind. This is the primordial bloodback, a tier 5 monstrosity. 170 hit points, 7 defense, 6 resistance. Yikes. It has Savage Charge, which I think... Charge attack that deals damage to all enemies in a 1-hex cone. Oh, I take it back. I was going to say, I think this is like the Giant King's one, but nope. And it has Pierce. It can also hurt a large boulder, for range, 1 AP. Deal damage to enemies in a 1-hex radius, with a 90% chance to stun. That is disgusting. They did say all of the primordial characters are very, very strong. You, the player, me, I, can obtain one of them from an underground prison. That I think is an ancient wonder, if you annex it. But other than that, I think to get one, you would have to do the... I don't know if the polymorph shenanigans still works. If it does, that'd be the only way to obtain it. And Primordial Strength. While this unit is in battle, all friendly units gain. If this unit is attacked at the end of their turn, they gain a stack of Strengthen and a Nature's Might, which makes it so base attacks have a +1 bite damage, and it can stack up to 5 times. So their idea with the Primordial Beasts was that these are hulking monstrosities that walked around during the era of the Giants, were strong enough to contest the Giants, or at least, give them a little bit of a headache. And while they're on the battlefield, they raise the strength of their army. On that note, the basic ape is a new wildlife unit. Tier 2. I think you can summon this with Summon Animal. I think. You cannot summon any of the primordial stuff with Summon Greater Animal, though. They mentioned that. So yeah. That's terrifying. Here is the Aspirant Knight. Now, the Aspirant Knight has replaced the Tier 3 Knight unit from the feudal culture we know and love. And he is essentially the same in every way. Except, he is a little bit weaker. Of course, Tier 2 instead of Tier 3. He is an Aspirant Knight, so he can evolve into a true Knight. He is slippery, which is rude. And he has Isolation Slayer. I guess we'll get to that in a moment. Here's the Charge Strike, 24-8. Not too shabby. However, I guess we'll get to that. Here's the Aspirant Knight. Upon Legend Rank, it promotes to Knight and requires a feeder Tier 4 Town Hall to be built in the Empire, so you need to be Tier 4 max tier before you can do this. And did I mention this? I don't think I did. Aspirant is an important word here. These basically function as Evolve units. However, there are a lot of synergies with Evolve, such as the Tome of Evolution, that would allow you to kind of skip a step. I did mention this. I'll mention it again. They basically allow you to skip steps or buff Evolution, Evolve units, and Aspirant just removes them from that equation. So if you thought of doing Tome of Evolution shenanigans with the feudal culture, sorry, it ain't gonna work. They thought of that. The Knight is now a Tier 4 monstrosity. 110 hit points, 4 defense, 4 resistance, charge strike. They still retain slippery. Very rude. But we will see him actually in his full glory a little bit later. So here is the butt, the Isolation Slayer. This unit deals -6 physical damage if another enemy is adjacent to the target. So the whole point of the Aspirant Knight is to kind of be like a skirmisher or to help secure, knock down isolated targets. If you just charge him in, like if you have a full battle line going in and you charge him in, he will not deal 24-8, he will deal 18-8. And this is because of the lightning blade, so the math will change, but you get the point, you get the point. Here is the proper knight. Isn't he glory? Look at his cape. Edna mode hasn't reached the medieval times just yet. And he has graceful charge, which is something. Certainly adding to his durability. And inspiring killer, so whenever he kills something, there is more morale bonus to be had. 7 status resist, not too shabby. 31 damage, of course, unupgraded, unenchanted, anything. Is just the basic one out of the encyclopedia. A truly terrifying unit. Fun fact, a number of the changes they've added for the feudal culture, were part of mods. Like, we had a mod that gave longbowmen to feudal at tier 3, and there was a tier 4 knight mod. Might be the one I had. I haven't used that one in a long time. The bonus roster. They also get Giant Slayer. Good fun. Good fun. There's Graceful Charge. Whenever they charge, they get 1 Grace, which remains to be one of the more annoying buffs in the game. There's Inspiring Killer, granting double morale. Here is the Liege Guard, the tier 3 for the aristocracy subculture. I don't know what Sworn Bond is, but I'm assuming it is something like Warding Bond. They have heavy shield and shield defense. They didn't hover for any of this. This is kind of a showing stuff off near the end. Here's the Archer with the Aspirant Longbow. Again, this is only for the Monarchy. And here is the Longbow itself, which I have a feeling is going to cause a lot of complaints. Because the Longbow is a longbow, meaning it grants +1 range, which I can only assume stacked with the Tome of Wind, giving the longbow a truly ridiculous amount of range, back to the days of glory, when archers dominated the battlefield. They also have a long shot, which is a full AP action, 30 damage, fires a ranged projectile at the target enemy unit at extreme range, 7 range, and big damage. This doesn't bounce anymore, right? If you went amp arrows, that only does the basic attack, I think. Did the music stop? Have I been talking that long? Almost. We have 4 minutes left. Let's go back to the beginning. I started halfway through the OST because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to talk that long, is there? Apparently there is. Back to the Heartwoods. Alright, so they met one of their opposing god here, and it was a Dragon Lord. The dragons and the giants hated each other. They were mortal enemies. So there's just a fun little lore reference here. Whenever you meet a Dragon Lord, not only do they have their own like little unique dialogue, but there will be negative relations. The ancient grudge of giants and dragons. I don't know how big it is, but it looks like it's pretty big. Could it be 300? I don't know. It's a lot. Quite a lot indeed. I would imagine it's 200, but I don't know what the rest of these numbers are. And by the way, that's vice versa as well. If you're playing as a Dragon Lord and meet a Giant King, you will also have the Ancient Grudge. They completed the Mirror of Verities, the quest that the crystalline individuals wanted from them. And you can choose to give it to them as the quest's obligation was. This gives you allegiance, or you can keep it. I imagine, based on what the quest was, this result will change. But if we choose to keep the Mirror of Verities, they lose allegiance, and you gain knowledge. Of course, they chose to keep it. Because they're rude. So Butcher's Cut. The reason I took this image was Tom was saying he nerfed it. But they ended up not nerfing it. So the Butcher Ogre remains a great nuisance. With the power of death I'll spare you the speech. This is one of the faded regions. They said the outline glows. The border glows, but it didn't look like it glowed to me. But this is part of... There are a whole bunch of new handmade regions. So, of course, a map is procedurally generated for the sandbox, map generation. But they've added a whole bunch of little tiny handmade regions that are very out of place. So, for example, these are like mountains, lands in the water. That's not how the map generation works. So they said you could probably tell most of the special regions based on them being something a little different. There were like 3, I think, they noticed in the Fog of War in the dev stream. So I'll be very curious to see how these pan out, if these have special benefits and what not. We'll see. The Penguins of Doom. The champion icon. I was wondering why I took the screenshot. Like, penguins! No. The champion icon is now a different color. It is very green. It's green. I'm not colorblind. It's like yellow-green. And here are the tomes. The exciting bit. There are tier 2 new tomes in the DLC. The first one at tier 2 is the Tome of the Dungeon Depths. And this is a very special tome that I kind of have mixed feelings on. But we'll see. The concept of this tome actually opens a new door for what a tome is. Because the idea behind the Tome of Dungeon Depths is this is less like a magical repertoire of enchantments and spells and shenanigans. This helps you build a literal dungeon underground. It changes the terrain and gives you unique special province improvements. The one it just gives you is the Dungeoneering Conclave. +5 knowledge, each turn alter an underground province into a dungeon up to the city's domain. This is like paved roads, very neat and sharp. You gain +2 production per adjacent dungeon province. Counts as a research post. That one is just given to you. This is also, by the way, a 2 Materium Affinity Tome. The Raiders of the Deep is a unit enchantment, granting the unit Cave Walk, and while underground, +1 defense, +1 resistance, and while above ground, +10% damage. This is for all unit types. Obviously not mythical units. The Dungeon Hazard is an enemy army spell. Target enemy army sustains 15 physical damage, doubled if cast on a dungeon province, and it becomes slowed for 1 world map turn. Is that the second spell to be able to do that? Or do you mean slowed in combat? That's probably what it means. And then the other ones are 3 special province improvements. The Clay Forge is a quarry that grants +5 production per adjacent dungeon province and +5 draft per adjacent dungeon province. Allows the drafting of the Clay Arbalist, Clay Charger, and Clay Defender units. These are basically Terracotta Sentinels. They are little clay men, and we will see them in a moment. It counts as a quarry. I don't believe they have the others, but there's also the Underground Vault, which is a gold mine, and the Silent Barracks, which is a quarry. Back in the day, tomes used to give special province improvements as like things you could research, but they kind of got rid of that. And now it's back, which is really cool. So the conflicting feelings I mentioned is like, if you want to do an underground culture, you don't have to, but you're very heavily incentivized to go Tome of the Dungeon Depths, whether it fits what you're doing or not. You just gain huge benefits from this, and it takes up a tier 2 tome slot, which, could be fine. I'm actually very interested to see how the community reacts to this. But, personally, I kind of would have liked to see underground development expand in another way, like maybe special research or something, but we shall see. Gotta get our hands on it to play around with it. So the Clay Defender. I get better pictures than this, but the Clay Defender is a shield unit, and here is the Clay Charger. Now, these units are not overly powerful for being a tier 3 unit. The Charger, the Arbalist, and the Defender. The Charger is a shock unit. They're also very basic. They have like no special abilities. The Defender is a shield boy. Spike shield. we have thorns. And the Arbalest is a crossbowman. But what makes them special is they are Legion. For each other friendly unit with Legion in combat, this unit gains +1 defense, +1 resistance, and +1 physical damage on attack, stacking up to 4 times. Effect are increased for singles shot attacks. I'm assuming this would also affect the charge, even though it's not a shot. So the idea behind this is you can create a, I don't want to say throwaway, but a very basic like defensive army that just kind of benefits from itself. And I'm assuming it's also affected by all enchantments that affect its unit type. So this will be very interesting to play around with. These aren't part of your culture, so they won't give any benefits from society traits or transformations or anything. They're just little stone men protecting your dungeon, which I think is really cool. I like the exploration of this. And here's Cave Walk. Moving through cavern floors costs 5 instead of 6. Fungus Fields 5 instead of 6. And Mushroom Forest 6 instead of 8. Just build roads, forehead. And here is the big one. The Tome of Geomancy. The Tier 3 Materium Astral Dual Affinity Tome. Where we obtain the first Materium Major Transformation. I have waited a long time for this moment. So the Hall of Geomantic Resonance is a city structure. The city gains different resources based on the terrain features of the city's core location, so where the city tile itself is. +40 food if grassland, swamp, or fungus field. +30 production if in forest, mushroom forest, rocky, or mountains. +20 gold if in ashland, and +20 mana if in snow, ice, or sand. Now, I have to assume that this stacks with Druidic Terraformers, which does essentially the same thing. While also making it cheaper to terraform and whatnot. So, cool. The Geomantic Crystallization, what we went over, this is the major racial transformation. Again, it plays entirely on what terrain you're standing upon, and gives your cultural units the elemental unit type, which could be insane. Could be. The Geomancer is the Tier 4 Battle Mage, and I feel like this makes the Transmuter feel all sorts of sad. Their damage shifts according to the terrain that they're standing on. They have the Terra Bolts, which are repeating, I'm assuming is a repeating attack at 16 physical damage, and then Geo Surge, which if I had to guess, is a 3 AP 1 hex radius thingamajig that probably changes based on the terrain it is on. Resonant Blades is a unit enchantment. Base melee attacks of enchanted unit gain a negative status effect based on the terrain. Effects are increased for single shot. So if I had to guess, physical, whatever generates physical, chance to bleed, ashlands, chance to burn, ice, chance to freeze or slow, that sort of thing. And then Summon Elemental, which is summon a Tier 3 Elemental unit on target hex. The Elemental summon changes based on the terrain type. So you're combining the various elementals with the way that Summon Animal works. And I believe, don't quote me on this, if I had to guess, this is the first way to legitimately tame a Tide Spirit. I believe. We'll see. We'll find out. Here is the Geomancer. Aren't they beautiful? Unfortunately, they don't hover over any of this, but that's what they look like. They look fantastic. Marvelous. There's the weird-looking champion symbol. I think they changed it because it looked too similar to Elite, just with spikes. But I'm judging. And here's what the Geomantic Crystallization major transformation looks like. It gives you crystalline spikes. You can be very shiny like this. And because, do remember, because this does not change your movement type, you can hide this if you don't like looking spiky and golden. And that is where we are. That was it, my friends. That was the Dev Diary Dev Stream. It felt like there was so much to go over in the Dev Stream compared to the Dev Diary, which, I suppose the first Dev Stream is always that way. There's just so many things to look at, so many things the devs are trying to explain, so many questions coming in from chat. It's just a lot. So before I forget, I do have my handy dandy notebook. There were a few things that were just mentioned that I don't have pictures for. One is that the game now remembers the Realm Advanced setup. So if you were setting up a realm and you back out for whatever reason, it will remember what you changed. There are 2 new society traits. I believe I mentioned that in the Pantheon. There is new combat map variants. I believe they said 8. I believe. And there are 4 new tracks of music. We saw that in the Dev Diary. The Giant Kings, much like the Dragon Lords and Eldritch Sovereigns, are not affected by minor and major transformations. The Underground has reworked a lot. We talked a little bit on that, and hopefully we see more of that in the next dev stream. I talked a little bit how certain giant types have been reserved for the next DLC. The ones they mentioned were Undead, Order, and Blight. Were those the ones that joined the Archons? We'll see. In Age of Wonders 3, you didn't actually find the Archons, you found Archon remains. I wonder. A Frost Giant, a basic Frost Giant, has been added as a Tier 4 Mythic unit, alongside the pre-existing Giants, which I do not believe have been changed. A whole lot of terraforming rules, layouts, stuff have been altered. Somehow, some way. I don't know. Tom explained the XP calculation. I don't remember how this was brought up in chat, but someone asked about how XP was calculated, and here's the way it worked. You may have already known this, I didn't. When you attack with an army with 6 or less people, the experience is always divided by 6. So if you attack with 3 units in your stack, the experience is still divided by 6. When you attack with more than 6 people, the experience will be divided based on how many units were in the attacking armies, regardless of how many survive. So if you attack with 12 people, experience is divided by 12 all participants, even if only 10 made it out. The reason for this, the first part specifically, is it used to be 4, and apparently the multiplayer meta was to just have stacks of 4 to try and boost experience as fast as possible. So they raised the floor to 6. I thought that was really interesting. The Primal Culture got a few buffs. The one in particular is that the Spoder summon now has a web, which is pretty dangerous. That was the only one Tom could mention off the top of his head. The developers are thinking/discussing about a Centaur major transformation. That sounds fun. More colors were added to flags and various customization effects. The spiders were also slightly buffed and slightly nerfed. Their webs no longer deal friendly fire damage, which is very cool. I actually dealt with that in the last playthrough. It was very painful. And blight resistance has been removed from a number of the spiders. And I believe that is it. We have gone over everything. My handy dandy notebook is complete, as is the Dev Diary. So thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I will see you next week for the next Dev Diary and Dev stream. It'll probably be on Thursday. And I hope you are as excited as I am for the Giant Kings. For those interested, the Blint Saga will pick up Chapter 3 this weekend. That's the plan. And that will be the final playthrough for the release of the next DLC. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to say man you with anything happening on the channel, feel free to join the Discord description down below. And I'll see you next week.